Brent Faiyaz is an artist who has shown exceptional promise in upholding the genre of modern R&B. We've seen the evolution in his discography from the more experimental AM Paradox, the mellow Lost EP, the 90s inspired Sonder Sun, and finally to the groundbreaking Fuck the World. But in order to understand how Brent Faiyaz makes music, we need to take a quick step back to understand the man himself and what really goes on in his mind. His journey into music started while he was at high school, with premature projects of Sunset Avenue and Black Child EP being lost in the whirlwind of SoundCloud EPs and projects with outcoming rappers. And speaking of rappers, Brent wasn't always a soulful R&B star, as his early approach to artistry was much more rap inclined, but he later found his way. One song in particular was Natural Release, which was an early descent into a more darker topic matter. Now fast forward a couple of years later, he formed the group Sonder, where his production took a left turn, but in the right way. But we'll get onto that later. What really took him off was the show-stealing hook of Crew that struck his career like a spark on a matchstick, and since then it has been non-stop pumping of audio heaven to the masses. Now we're going to split this video into 4 sections: production, writing, vocals, and musical process. Production-wise, we've seen a constant evolving of his sound from the more experimental AM Paradox to the 90s inspired style he penned on Sonder Sun to this new raw and unique R&B style that we've seen on recent songs Dead Man Walking and Circles. But who's behind this production? Well, this can be attributed to his production team trio Sonder, consisting of Deepak, Atu, and of course himself. Their production is decorated on pretty much all of the projects he's put out. The production has a sort of raw and nostalgic feel to it that manages to be so simple yet so vivid at the same time. Layered with Brent Faiyaz's boyish yet soothing vocals helps bring out authentic raw emotion out of every song he jumps on. But if we dissect this further, it shows that this is all intentional, and even in the definition of the trio Sonder. Sonder is defined as the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. This matches with the way in which they approach music, as it's ever so intricate and individual, yet it's still so in tune with the surroundings and what people in general want to hear. From the throwback 90s style from his Sonder Sun project to the defiant, rebellious nature of Dead Man Walking, telling the listener you can do what you wanna, spend what you wanna, and be who you wanna be. It's a direct shot at someone's identity, and being coated with cinematic, shrill sliding synths makes you either want to reinvent yourself or unapologetically be who you are. But the ambiance is only one part of the track, and putting pen to paper is a completely different story. But his relationship to the pen started on an unlikely path, and as it turns out, he's quite the artist, and I'm not talking about music. In an interview he said, "I used to draw. I used to be real heavy into drawing when I was a kid. I was one of them kids who went to like Royal Institute College of Art when I was like 8 and took classes with high school kids because I was real nice with drawing and shit. I don't really draw anymore, but at the time when I was young, and that was everything." He swiftly made the transition to writing lyrics, as similar to the drawing, it became a form of therapy for him to deal with the situations he was going through. In terms of his writing, he is more of a reckless writer, writing lyrics where and whenever, whether it's on his notes app or short poems throughout the day. If he's in the studio, he'll listen to the beat and just let the words come to him. This very spontaneous and unforced writing process is a testament to his unique ideas, and it's even more refined in his recent work circles, where the constant questioning in the lyrics is almost like we're hearing a conversation going on in his head, as opposed to a verse to a song. But this instinctive style is even more personal to Brent himself as a person, due to the fact that he has ADHD. He has said, in order to take full control of his creativity, Faiyaz realized there were a few bad habits he had to kick. During the pandemic, Faiyaz stopped drinking and smoking and replaced them with more nourishing pastimes with regular exercise and reading. It was a goal he set after his 25th birthday in September in an attempt to be more present in his interactions. Unlike his pre-sober life, he says that he now makes sure that he's making consistent eye contact with people when speaking. He remembers people's names when he meets them, and says he's getting in less car accidents, which he says were a result of his attention deficit disorder. Now in terms of his vocals, he has a 90s feel that sounds so familiar, yet you haven't actually heard it before. But his confidence in his voice was something that took some time to develop. Remember how I said in his early career he was more rap inclined? Well, he used to use his vocals onto beats to make the beats themselves sound better. He later realized that these background vocals could actually be the main, and the rest is history. Now his distinct signature voice and hooks are scattered everywhere, and even his unfinished verses end up finding their way on the biggest tracks. Yep, you heard that right. Let's take Crew for example, with a hypnotic hook that is partly responsible for putting him in the music industry spotlight. That super catchy hook was actually part of a verse for that song that didn't actually get finished. Crazy, right? Anyway, let's jump into his musical process. He doesn't work chronologically and pretty much just executes ideas as they come along. The process is unorganized and chaotic, but he prefers it, and it's the reason for his creative verses and hooks. When he executes songs, his emphasis is on giving out a feel or a message, and a lot of the times it means he strips back on the production so that people aren't distracted by the beat. This makes so much sense to the general simplistic production we've seen him on from the very start of his career. His whole song making technique and how he approaches turning an idea to light is quite interesting. He said, "I have an idea sonically. I'll pull up to the studio and I'll hum a bass line or hum a sound in general. I might go in there solo, just me and the engineer, and I'll cut the whole idea vocally of how I want the beat to sound. And then we'll just end up using instruments later. That's why a lot of the vocals are stacked, because these songs started off a cappella. I'll have an idea of how I want it to sound, and then I'll have some lines in my head. From there, the song kind of just makes itself. I don't even pen as much as I used to, it's just freestyling now."